Go. Good. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Administrative Services Budget Review. And we're going to start off with a brief overview.
A lot of words on this piece of paper. Good morning, everybody. So I did send this out to everybody in advance of the meeting so that you could review it and read it over first, but just in case anybody hasn't been able to, I just wanted to read through it really quickly. So first and foremost, inside your binders, the first section with the larger full-length tabs, that is actually the tentative budget. You have your operating budget section, which includes the local share summary, and that shows activity for all funds, displays the tax levy, property valuation, and tax rate for 2026, 2025, and the changes year over year. You have your capital budget section, which includes the status of active capital projects and a list of projects proposed for new or additional funding in 2026. You have your personal services analysis, which shows your total FTEs by department for 2026, 2025, and the change year over year. In your fiscal status section, which includes your fund balance and debt schedules, this demonstrates the use of fund balance and reserves, and these uses are not reflected at the department level, and they're only broken out in detail on the local share spreadsheet. So that's where you're going to want to look for those. Budget summaries and line item detail, which are behind your tentative budget. They're in order by organization number, which on your agenda, there's a little number by each organization. That is the number of the tab in the line item detail section that you're going to want to flip to for that respective department. Your budget summary components can include your, excuse me, your FTE position summary, which was included in a packet in your inside sleeve of your binder this year. Your local share summary by department and your summary by department at the classification level with comments. And these budget hearings focus primarily on that section of your book. And then your budget worksheet line item detail reports are behind the summaries for each respective department. Financial projections were also provided in the front pocket of your binders, so you have those to look over as well. Overall highlights, I'm not going to touch on all of these, but the FTEs and governmental funds increased 26.17 FTEs, the bulk of which are broken down on the overview, again, was emailed to you, so we can touch on those during the course of today's reviews for any of the departments that they apply to. Base pay includes percentage increases for managers and the applicable increases from collective bargaining agreements. Again, this year, a 5% vacancy savings was budgeted in each department's .1 and .8 accounts. As in past years, just a reminder, this is not to discourage, and we did remind the departments of this as well, this is not to discourage departments from filling their vacant positions. This is really to account for the anticipated countywide savings on account of vacancies during the course of the budget year, which is currently trending at right around 8% still. So it's still trending fairly high, so we were comfortable with the 5% vacancy savings. Quick note, all .8 accounts are a derivative of the .1s, meaning basically amendments to this classification in any department can only happen if you actually make changes to the .1s or changes to the staffing for that respective department. Recommended format for the budget review hearings. Department heads will lead the committee through their budget summaries. The deputy director, or in some cases fiscal supervisor, will assist the department heads with detailed answers to questions as needed. You will refer to your budget by account detail as necessary if you'd like to, dive into any of the nitty-gritty details for any of the classifications. And then it's also recommended that the committee vote on any desired amendments to send to audit and control either during the course of the meeting, during the course of each department's presentation, or at the end of the day to summarize everything all in one. So you can do it as you choose, but that is our recommendation. And finally, it's lastly recommended that to the extent possible, if you can, that you propose amendments to offset any increases to appropriations or decreases to revenues. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Jen. with that being said, and everybody knowing what we're doing, we'll lead off with John D'Angelo and Information Technology. Please state your names and who you are and what you're doing here and how long you've worked for the county and your responsibilities on a day. No, I'm just kidding.
Blood type too, or what? John D'Angelo, Chief Information Officer for the county.
Sam Zaffoto, Deputy Director of Finance, assigned to Administrative Services, Public Safety, and Planning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you got for us, John?
Well, we're going to start with our FTEs, if that's okay. And we see an increase of 1 FTE across all departments. I guess let me step back. Information Services is comprised of 4 different departments. We have our Office Services Department, our Communications Department, Information Technology, and then our GIS. So those 4 go into what makes up Information Services together. So that's why you see 4 different line items pretty much everywhere. Across all 4 of those, we see an increase of 1 FTE, and that person will be dedicated to the Sheriff's Department. We see a extensive need for more IT assistance in the Sheriff's Department. Just more and more and more use of technology by law enforcement, and we just cannot, frankly, keep up. So, for instance, this year we had 80 body cameras come in that we had to deploy, and now every single car has a camera in it that also does license plate reading. So things like that just increase the need for our support. We also support many districts within the county. So not only the Sheriff's Department does the IT staff support, but we also support Westfield PD, Dunkirk PD, Fredonia PD, Jamestown PD, Ellicott PD. So there's a lot of outside agencies that our IT supports through the Sheriff's Department. So that's why we see a need for that 1 additional IT technician for the sheriffs, taking up to 3 that they'll be funding. Outside of that, there's no other increase in FTEs across all the departments. We move into our accounts. Overall, we see a 1% reduction, around $17,000, which is great. And we can step into each department individually if you'd like. We can start with 1610.
Let me interrupt you.
Absolutely.
Today, as we're going along, don't raise your hand, don't, just ask the question, because we don't need to be polite with me, so.
Or me, yeah,
Or
absolutely.
John.
Yeah, just ask away.
John likes rude people, so go ahead.
Sure, deal with it all the time.
Sorry, John.
So, no problem. Office services, we see a $20,000 reduction in local share. Office services is basically mail processing and our courier service. So we do see an increase in postage that's scheduled by the post office. So we did budget for an increase in postage. But to offset that, we are seeing trending a reduction in paper use. So that's a good thing, using less paper for the county. I don't know why that is, but I'm not going to complain about it. We have started in orientation every other week, telling people that we use 14,000 pieces of paper every week across the county, and that we'd like to try and reduce that. So maybe they're paying attention, I don't know. But so that's why we see a reduction in the contractual. The revenue on office services is based directly on the use of postage and paper purchasing as well. So that's why we see a reduction in those numbers too.
That 25,000 is mostly paper.
Yes.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And we used to go through probably $64,000 worth of paper, and I kept it there for a few years, but then I'm just seeing a consistent reduction in use, so we're going to reduce the budget. So,
Well, that 14,000 pages, that strikes me as something close to 300 pounds a week.
yeah, I didn't do that computation, but you're probably right. You're probably right.
Not so fitting.
Yeah. Any questions on office services? Okay. If not, we'll move to our communications department. That is essentially all of the desk phones that are used throughout the county. We do have a third of a person dedicated to taking care of that phone system, although a lot of people help out with it. Again, we see let me get this number right, overall a $15,000 reduction. Most of that is in contractual again. We do see a little increase in revenue. We do service some outside agencies like CRIC, a few of the sheriff's outside agencies, and the courts. So that's, and their use is expanding, so we see an increase in some revenue on that side of things. Also, we do see some increase use by the county with some expansion to different offices and things like that. We're rolling out more and more phones. So right now we're around, I think the number's around 1,500 phones we have out there that we take care of across all county locations. So, but overall, pretty stagnant. Basically, we charge out essentially whatever we spend on a monthly basis, except for those outside agencies. We charge them, you know, a little additional fee for us kind of doing all the background work. Okay. 1680 is our information technology department. That's our primary department, our largest anyway. And there we're seeing a reduction, a small increase of $17,855. That's primarily around personal services, which are the contractual increases. No increases in staffing there. We were able to reduce some contractual numbers because we are seeing increase in some contractual costs, especially around software. The more we go to the cloud is great, reduces some maintenance, but it is a little more expensive. So as we continually migrate some things to the cloud, like we've migrated email this year, and we're looking to migrate more applications next year, we will see a little bit of software increase. I'm hoping over time that will lead to a reduction potentially in staffing, but we can't quite make that jump yet.
Question in this here.
Yes.
You had alluded to all the vehicles receiving cameras and things. Do you install that equipment into the vehicles once they're purchased, and then, like, is there a lot of maintenance with that? I mean, as far as them not working and you're over there all the time fixing them?
Right. That's a coordination with the radio shop, the sheriff's radio shop. They do all the in-car work, so they'll be the ones drilling the holes in the cars and installing these. Okay. We're responsible for configuration, updates, making sure they're working. When they go bad, we replace them. So there's a few items in each car. These cameras are new in the cars, but there's also a modem in the car that we take care of as well. So, but yeah, the radio shop does all the physical kind of dirty work, if you will, but we take care of administering those devices.
With that many devices, it's a lot of work to maintain them, and you think you'll be able to do that efficiently?
Well, with 3 people on board, that's certainly going to help. The 2 we have on board right now, it is a struggle. We're behind in some other things that I can speak of offline if you'd like.
Sure.
But it is very difficult to keep up. I would say and that's just on projects, right? That's a big project that came up, those always come up year by year. Next year, we're planning a big upgrade to our radio system, so we'll be engaged in that as well. And then there's all the day-to-day putting out fires, help desk calls that we get, and that's across all county departments. But these 2 guys manage all of those. I would say probably 30% of those calls are from outside agencies, So we do a lot to support not only the Sheriff's Department, but those outside agencies in addition, so.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think as time goes on, you'll see more and more cameras in more and more vehicles.
Yeah, and not only vehicles, but all of our buildings, everywhere. Every new building we're moving into or expanding to, our request is for cameras. And we are putting them on the sheriff's system because that makes sense, so that, dispatch can see all the cameras in all the buildings and pull them up as needed. So we're consolidating camera systems, which is a smart thing. But yeah, they're just the expansion of that alone is a huge deal, and the storage of all that as well. So there's costs associated with that.
So, to me, IT broadly is, in this economy, is a agent of change.
Mhm.
It's where science and technology are making faster progress than almost any other sector. So one would expect it to grow. In my not that long ago private sector experience, where I had to manage IT and deal with the users, the trick was getting the users who were dazzled by the new possibilities to actually bring the benefit of IT down to the bottom line, as opposed to, for example, having cameras because they could, or having whatever because it was kind of neat. I said, but wait a minute, if we're going to spend X amount of dollars giving you this new technology, then where's Y amount of dollars in savings or in headcount savings? How do we, in this county, manage that? You're spending more, and you should, but your clients need to get something tangible for it.
Right.
Who manages what that tangible is, and how does that process work?
Well, that's a great question, Mr. Johnson. I think it's a mix of budgetary constraints along with our policies and procedures when it comes to purchasing. I can only do so much. I don't control, I'll throw an example, DSS's budget.
Sure.
Or like emergency services budget. However, anything IT related, they have a concept that they want to implement, has to cross our desk. So we do an IT review of that to make sure that it fits into our technology and that it'll work, essentially. Some things I do question occasionally, do we really need it? But then it's a budgetary standpoint, and it's not my budget, so.
And that's what I found. The IT guys really had pretty good insight into what, not only what would and wouldn't work, but if they look back a year or two, what they put in is really being used productively or not. And that, to me, was always an excellent window into the operating departments of the productive versus not productive use of technology.
Yeah, I think we're pretty good across the departments, though, I will say. I don't think there's a lot of implementing things just because we can. I'm not a strong proponent of using taxpayer dollars for like bleeding edge technology. I don't want to be the first to jump in that pool. We kind of wait, and we talk to other counties in the state who've implemented certain things and making sure they're working before we dive in and spend, taxpayer dollars on those. So yeah, we don't implement things because we can in general. We do them because we need to. And they are eventually going to, some of them save us money on the back end down the road.
An example, I think, is that we installed cameras at the DPF station in Faulkner. We're experiencing theft. Maybe it's going to deter or save equipment coming up missing. The other thing we have installed cameras at the transfer station to help try to mitigate some litigation if there's accidents. We can actually see what took place and have that as evidence. And it's important that technology is there because it's helping mitigate risk and theft as well.
So all of that is, and it ranges from something that's a real hard saving or a real hard benefit to kind of nice to have, so you just got to manage it.
Right.
But the reason to go here is, and you're probably waiting for it, is we're about to get a whole, or in the middle, a whole other wave of this stuff being AI generated.
Mhm.
And even the other day, we've got the chairman of Walmart going, hey, my hiring, my FTEs, if you like, are going to take a real big change because of AI.
Mhm.
Now, that's a big organization, though. How many PCs do you look after, 1,200?
About 1,200. If we count all the outside agencies, probably closer to 2,000, but yeah,
Okay.
1,200 county
So we
devices.
now have that next wave of intelligence or technology starting to wave at us
Mhm.
with big potential impacts. How do we do it? Yeah, this isn't a today budget issue, but
Right.
it's coming at us.
No, it certainly is. I like Accenture, which is one of the consulting big six consulting company. They're cutting, I think, 50 or 60% of their programmers because AI is going to do it. We don't have that advantage right now. We don't do a lot of programming in-house.
I was thinking of our users, actually.
Yeah. I mean, we're hoping that some of these technologies will be available to our users to help themselves
Mhm.
fix some problems and maybe reduce our help desk calls and having us, remotely connect and help all these people. Maybe they can do some of it themselves. We haven't implemented much of that yet, but like you said, we know it's coming. There's policies that are being framed around it at the state level to allow us, to tell us what we can and can't do. They haven't finalized those yet. They're in draft format.
That's frightening.
Yes, yeah, it is. And some counties are jumping ahead a little bit with some technologies that will help our citizens when they call in, getting some answers to questions. And we're looking at options like that to help our really the people that need it, the people that call in and aren't getting the answers they need to. So I think we'll get there little by little. But like I said, I'm not going to jump in just because we can implement these things, not until we need to and have the money to.
I like your phrase, leading edge, stay away from.
Yeah, not with, I mean, personally, I don't mind diving in and checking things out, but from a taxpayer dollar standpoint, no way. Not going to happen.
So John, not a lot of dollars, but a big percentage increase in internet charges. Could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, our internet provider, so that's our website. 4241 is basically our website. We're under contract until next March with our current provider. They're a local provider out of Fredonia. So we anticipate, we've been with them 5 years now, so the purchasing department is requiring us to go back out to bid to possibly revamp our website. I anticipate an increased cost when we do that. Now, if the current provider wins that bid at the same cost, then we'll have some savings, but I had to budget for an increase because we are going back out to bid for that and coming out of contract on our website.
Thank you.
Mhm.
John, I don't see any money in the budget for training for you. I don't know. I always see my IT people at school, they were kind of they taught me how to use technology. Do you guys have, do you need training?
We do. We have, I think we have in a 1680.4700 account, I think is where it is. I think I budgeted 12,000, which is generally what we've been using.
Okay.
Training is so expensive, even though it's remote now. We rarely send anybody to training like we used to. But IT training is extremely expensive. I just sent a PO actually to our network switch provider for some training for our staff. So, yep, about it. Yes, no problem. It's hard to keep up, but we try. We do our best to get everybody trained. Any other questions? Okay. And I always say, I know IT is involved in every department, so if you do have any questions come up subsequent departments today, I'll be downstairs. So just give me a call and I can run up. Okay. Oh, I forgot GIS. Well, probably because there's not much change to it. Our budget's been pretty stable there. We have some money in there for licensing of our server. We do host our own GIS servers in-house still. And we do have contracts with Labella Associates and an individual out of Buffalo that help us maintain the system. We maintain the server in-house, but a lot of the programming and things we rely on those vendors for. So that's why you see some contractual contractor expenses there. But overall, that's been pretty stable. We don't anticipate any major changes in our GIS in the coming year, so we're able to maintain those numbers.
You've got the best county GIS system I've run across. When I go poking into other counties, I get frustrated.
I appreciate that. And I will say, because my picture's on the website, when I'm out in the community, that's the one thing that people do stop me and say, hey, I really appreciate your GIS. It really does a good job. Realtors, lawyers contact me constantly. And let me tell you, if it's down, I hear about it pretty quickly. So we make sure that we keep it up to date as much as we can.
I guess the only thing that I have, we had discussed putting cameras in the carts buses. Are you guys administering that as well with every other camera in the county?
We'll be engaged in that. I don't think it's a solid project yet, as far as at least it hasn't crossed my desk yet. It will. Right now, we're in the midst of implementing new tablets for all the carts, buses. We are heavily involved in that.
Okay.
So if we do put cameras in, frankly, it depends on what system they're on. If they're going to try and put them on the sheriff's system, we will be heavily involved. If it's going to be an isolated, cloud-based system, we'll review it from a technical perspective, but we might not have much to do with the implementation. It really depends on the solution that they choose.
Anything else? I guess we're good.
Okay.
John.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
You went 3 minutes over.
10 to Mary.
Up next, Finance. That's a heck of a place for a plug on the floor.
All right, Kitty Crow, Director of Finance, and we'll be on tab 21 in your books.
I'm there already.
So, overall, we have not seen starting with FTEs, any change in our FTEs. As you can see here, we do have a lot of our employees who are allocated back to various other departments, and this is mainly so that we can maximize any reimbursement opportunities. So some of the administrative costs and social services and mental hygiene can be claimed for the administrative work of finance, so that is charged back. So that's why you see so many accounts there. This year, we tried to give you a better view of like my staff as an organization, and then in italics are where those individual FTEs are allocated to other, so the cost of them are going to be in other departments. All right, then the main budget summary tab. So there's 3 accounts here, org sets, finance, property tax, and insurance administration. So the Department of Finance, that's where the majority of our employees are budgeted for, and all of our department expenses. The real property tax office is just that, so that includes this real property tax director, her staff, and tax map. And then insurance administration, that's for the administration of the workers' comp program and our general liability program. So moving on to the next page, just for account A1310 for finance. Overall, the net local share increase is 139,000. We have increases, actually decreases in some software maintenance. Take that back. The software maintenance increased, but we were able to reduce other contractual costs to offset that. Other than that, any changes were related to our collective bargaining agreements. Down under revenue, we do have revenue in this account that is from the occupancy tax, so a portion of the occupancy tax is allocated to our department for enforcement and administration. And just as a reminder from this month's meeting, we'll be implementing some new software this quarter for occupancy tax collections, so that should streamline those processes, allow for online payment, better compliance. Anyone would be able to go in and could see, that'll help us to determine who is non-compliant and reach out to those individuals to bring them into compliance. So I think that'll be a really good software implementation for us this quarter. Then we also receive some revenue, $5,000 annually, from the Chautauqua Tobacco Asset Securitization, I forgot what the C part is, but CTASC. And then our credit card rebates make up the total of the revenue for that department. We do, as a matter of policy, require all vendors to be paid electronically, either by ACH direct deposit or by a credit card payment. We do have some exceptions, but for the most part, we do get rebates for the credit card payments to our vendors. Moving on to real property tax.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just looking at the personal services line, so there was a 13% increase from 24 to 25, and another almost 7% increase 25 to 26. Given our discussion lately with technology and whatnot, why are we growing so much faster than inflation in that line?
So from 24 to 25, that was a change due to our reorganization. So the positions that were previously budgeted in other departments were now report under the finance department.
Okay.
So we transferred employees. Changes from 25 to 26 and just include contractual obligations.
But what are we tied into that grows at 7% a year and a 2.5% environment inflation? What, I mean, that
Our
kind of stuff.
collective bargaining agreements, the salary rates that are in those agreements. Sometimes, like in the salary schedules, there's cost of living adjustment year to year on the salary schedule. But additionally, employees go from one step to the next step each year within the salary schedule. So while the overall salary schedule increase might be 3%, if you also are getting a step increment, and even the middle step increments are generally kind of they're higher from step to step in the beginning and not as high when you go from the higher steps.
Right.
And you kind of, once you get to the top step, you're only getting the cost of living adjustment in the overall schedule. So sometimes,
I understand the mechanics,
yes.
but fundamentally, when we are purchasing a human service that is giving us the same service every year, and we're paying more than inflationary increases year after year, we're going to end up in a jam. So, granted, 2026 is probably in concrete at this point on this issue, but again, no fundamental changes that I'm seeing here, yet we're going up 7%. I understand the mechanics. That is what it is, but I don't like 2.5% inflation, 7% cost increase for same output.
Yeah. So, like we haven't changed our staffing. We're actually, in essence, down one, because even though the report shows one less is because in this year's budget, one position was incorrectly allocated to the mental hygiene department where they have reimbursement for their positions, which should have been budgeted in the 2025 budget under finance. So I essentially gave up that position this year.
So, I mean, all I
Our
can say
core operations.
is I would encourage you and, other departments in this situation to work harder at what I call physical productivity, which comes back to either output per head count or less head count, to keep if we're giving the same output, to keep the growth in that cost of that output at inflation or less. We can't do this forever.
It entirely comes back to our collective and bargaining agreements. What is adopted by the legislature and the collective bargaining agreement sets the salaries for all of our employees. If you would like to reduce positions, that's your prerogative to make that proposal as a budget amendment. That would reduce our personnel costs.
Okay, well, maybe we'll do that. Because, again, we can't be growing an expense above inflation forever. So you've outlined two options, and sooner or later, we're going to have to pick one or both.
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. I guess a comment on that is also we have tried to get some of the rates up a little bit. So some of these years may seem like a larger growth than inflation, but it's to create the competitive nature so we can help with retention and also draw in some of those financed individuals to fill positions. A comment, I guess, or a question. We are seeing an increase in the wages. Is there an increase in the revenue to follow? You had stated some of those positions are paid for by various grants or departments. So is there a revenue increase along with this increase?
So you won't see that here. Okay. On the going back to the FTE page, for example, you see the rows that are in italics. So the FTEs that are allocated under mental hygiene, those costs were embedded in their budget, which you saw yesterday. So whatever personnel costs that they have are basically offset by the fees that they charge in their clinics, et cetera. For social services, that is reimbursed under any of their, like in 6010, if they're allocated there, or the health department, it just depends on what the reimbursement rate is for administrative expenses. If that's 63% or, whatever's allowable is being claimed. So it's not capped off at, say, what salary increases we have. It's just we get a % reimbursement based on the cost.
But finance really takes the hit in sense just in the budget line because you're giving everybody that increase and you're showing that, but you're not showing the revenue increase.
But no, because all the FTEs are not in this budget here. There's the cost for those people are in the other budget along with the revenue. So any employees that we're not able to claim reimbursement for are in, my department. But yeah, I mean, to your point, in the last couple of collective bargaining agreements that have been settled, a lot of them did increase wages maybe more incrementally than past collective bargaining agreements, simply for the need for retention, recruitment, can make sure that our salaries are competitive. And so, so right now, it might seem like it's greater than inflation, but they were lower than inflation a couple of years ago and lower in terms of what the comps are for within Chautauqua County or across other counties in New York State. So I personally wouldn't expect to see those types of incremental changes in future collective bargaining agreements, but every time you come around, there might, you don't know right now what might be happening in a couple years from now as far as economy goes and other things. But when we're running 8% vacancy savings, that says something.
Understood.
Any other questions on 1310? I don't know if I'll keep going through and then we can go back to any of the detail if you like. Under property tax, again, that's the services of the tax department. They do have, typically have software improvements to keep up with technology, and sometimes changes within real property tax procedures. This past year, we started online payment options, and when we get into Department 99, I'll go into a little bit more on the results of our most recent auction. And then lastly,
In the contract, I'm sorry, in the revenue for real property tax, significant reduction in credit card transactions.
That is actually offset by a reduction in the contractual line for credit card fees too. That went down 13,000 in the budget under tax as well too. So that's kind of an offset of those two accounts for the expense and the revenue from that.
Okay. And then can you elaborate a little bit more about the software updates, software enhancements?
Well, I can, actually, if we had the transaction, because it listed out, but we got a proposal from the software company, which is RAM Data, so it's basically their proposal for the next fiscal year, so it was a slight increase. I had it all listed out through the transactions on here, I don't have it in front of me, but we could send you the whole proposal of what they plan to do next year.
Well, my question is more a global one. Several years ago, a couple of years ago, we were talking at length about changing out our software system for real property tax to update it to something more current. And I don't believe we ever pulled the trigger, but we were getting close to doing something about that. And now we're spending more money to maintain an out-of-date system, so.
well, I would, for clarification, I don't know that our system is out of date. I wouldn't say that. Every year, it's updated to meet the current requirements for real property tax collections, our auction, et cetera. This year, for example, we were doing 2 years worth of an auction, so that requires, software enhancements to do something like that. We have greatly improved our relationship with our current vendor, and really, right now, we have no concerns over the software or the vendor. Certainly, we can always look at other solutions. When we did look at other solutions a couple of years ago, just to see what was available in the marketplace, not all of them did meet our requirements. We really couldn't find one that met our foreclosure processes, and because some counties don't do it themselves, whereas we do, so that there's not broad software that does everything. Also with Tyler Technologies, who's we have all of our ERP system with, they did not even have a solution for us. They've recently redeveloped their software for that sort of thing, and we haven't looked at it, but it would certainly be an incremental cost to implement something new. I would expect it to be close to $1 million for a new implementation. But it's something we can look at in the future if there's an interest.
Here, as we were looking a couple years ago into that, it helped us to realize that I don't want to say have to stay with what we had, but the jump to another one, they didn't offer what we have now. And speaking with real property, there's some optimism that we could possibly be doing better with the company that we're currently working with in the future. It looks like it'll be more positive to us.
Well, that's certainly good news that our relationship with our software supplier has improved from where we were a couple of years ago, because what I was hearing back then was that it was pretty poor.
Yes, it's gotten better, and it looks even brighter
Yeah.
moving forward.
But Kitty, you mentioned that there are no other solutions available to do what we do. Of course, that begs the question, what the other counties in New York State do. And have we looked into what they do and what software they use to implement what they do? And if it's a question of our processes are different than theirs, that would, of course, lead me to ask, why are our processes different, and do they need to be different?
It's not that our processes are different, but for some other counties don't do the foreclosure work themselves. It's outsourced. So generally speaking, outsourcing something costs more. That's been my experience. Not to say that that would be the case. We haven't, thoroughly vetted that. But it would also, so that's one area. The software that we were able to look at doesn't do, and it has to do with whether we're a Chapter 11 county or not, what we adopted as far as our foreclosure and tax collection. So as you know, like, you have to pay the latest owing taxes first, so some of the software doesn't do that very well, or can't apply multiple payments. And maybe the technology has changed in a couple of years, but those were the issues at the time. We didn't find, we put an RFP out, we got, we didn't put an RFP out, we reached out to software providers that we knew other counties were using, and when we went through presentations with them, they could not do what we needed the software to do, so we, didn't move forward.
Okay, well, there's a lot more questions around that discussion, but I think that it's something that we should be considering going forward as to why we are so different from the other counties in New York State, and if there is an opportunity for some improvement or cost reduction, that's something that we should consider exploring going forward.
Sure. We can certainly look into that. It's not that we're so different, it's that, maybe the other counties are doing it less efficiently, and at a higher cost, so that we could find out, certainly. But with most software maintenance goes up annually. Our Tyler ERP finance HR system, our annual maintenance costs go up every year. So this is no different, that it's increases, generally speaking, on an annual basis. So
Maybe some subcontracting eliminates that cost.
Or the threat of subcontracting when you negotiate. Sounds to me like what you're saying is, in my experience, would back you up, that we're better off where we are for now and doing it in-house until we come back up against that $1 million nut of doing things over. And that's when we need to really relook at what we want to outsource and what we don't want to outsource.
mm-hmm. Any other questions on these three departments? If not, I know on the schedule it calls for a break, but I'm happy to continue on with any of the other four next items on your schedule.
Did we do insurance administration?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. No, we didn't. Insurance administration, org set A 1989, This is where it's the salary and benefits of the two people that administer our workers' comp and liability insurance programs. 100% of their expenses are allocated to either the CS fund or the MS fund, so the liability fund or the workers' comp fund. From there, those charges are allocated out to county departments, which we'll talk more about further on the agenda. So this department is always net zero.
A question I have is, in this particular category, we're seeing that inter-fund revenues adjust with those rates. But back to 1310 in that question, the revenues are just zero.
They're two different things.
I get that, but why wouldn't it show in the inter-fund revenues adjusted there in the 1310?
Because they're not going to another fund. They're going to another department, but
Just
not
a
another.
department,
But
just
they're not,
another
so in
fund.
1310, the payroll is directly allocated to the payroll accounts in the other departments. It's not done like as a revenue, like an expense to my department and I get a revenue from their department. That's what this is in 1989.
So it's not an expense in your department either, or is it?
For which department?
Well, for the 1310.
For 1310, those are just the expenses of the employees' costs that are in that department. Any of my employees that are through payroll allocations, so you won't even see their payroll costs in 1310 at all. You see their payroll costs directly in the other department.
Okay.
And then they claim the revenue and get the revenue in that department. Whereas in 1989, what happens is there's an entry that charges the expense from 1989 to the CS fund and to the workers' comp fund. And so those two funds incur an expense and that comes back to the general fund as a revenue.
I like it that way, because you can actually see the corresponding revenue change with it, where the other one is, you'll have to really backtrack around to find that.
But those expenses aren't even in this, in 1310 to begin with.
Just a calculation question. I've been yesterday and today kind of tracking employee benefits as a percent of personal services. And I noticed it jumps around between slightly less than 50% to, in the case of some of these smaller, 1330, for example, significantly more than 50%. Why is
That
that
would be
bounce
due to
around?
health insurance election. So if somebody
Okay.
is a single versus a family plan, that will dramatically change the.
Okay, so that's that.
So,
And then not really, well, as your kind of your role as chief financial officer, yes, but again, versus private sector, to have employee benefits running at 50% of comp, just strikes me as really high relative to the private sector.
well, if you have some of our employees on the lower end of the salary schedule and they have a family of 3 health insurance plan,
Mhm. No, I'm saying it ain't.
then you're at 60 or 70% of wages for their benefits.
Mhm. But and again, a broader question. Has anybody considered broadly trying to move, not save money, but move our compensation from what I'll call benefits or deferred compensation into weekly cash compensation? Really for the purpose of our being more competitive out in the marketplace for hiring people?
Employees do have an option to opt out for a cash payment, opt out of health insurance. And
And
the opt-out is less costly than if they take the insurance.
where's pension expense? Is that in employee benefits? Okay. That's maybe the one I was thinking in terms of deferred comp insurance is more kind of current.
Yeah, the pension is a New York State, they're automatically essentially in the
Right.
pension system,
So that's determined at state level?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, nowadays, younger people really don't trust the future as much as people my age did. And so to put it in fancy terms, the discount rate on future promises is higher. And the value placed on current money is greater. And if one could shift one's compensation system away from deferred towards current, one would, I think, have a better chance of recruiting in that market. But again, if the state requires it, I'm talking about,
Yeah, I mean,
I need to talk to Mr. Barella.
I do hear, surprisingly, like a lot of, you know, things I read or, you know, conferences that I've been at, like, it is surprising that, you know, some of the younger generations actually do like the idea of a pension. You know, it's kind of, the trend's a little bit reversing in some cases, but, yeah, I mean, and that's always historically been a draw to, you know, government work, though the pension itself right now isn't as great a differential in hiring as it would be in the private sector for like a 401k or something like that, but.
Right, anyway.
Any other questions?
And we'll just, yeah, why don't we just keep going until at least 10:30?
Okay. All right, well then, the next account would be tab number 99, so all the way in the back of the book. So department miscellaneous is, I always say just that. This is where we capture various expenses and revenues that are not attributable to a individual department, so they're grouped here. So I am going to really just skip the first page because it's more meaningful to look at them on the individual levels. So the first org set 1310-9999. A lot of revenues are recorded here, so I'll just kind of go down through the notes and feel free to ask questions as we go. So the first revenue classification is where our that's actually the, so sales tax is included here, and in projecting the sales tax for next year, two things impacted the projections. One is, you know, just our normal inflationary growth in sales tax. Last year, and I think the year before, what I've utilized is, so when on the comptroller's website for the calculation of the tax cap, the formula is, you know, our cap is the lesser of inflation, or 2%. So obviously this year our tax cap is 2%, but the comptroller will publish what the inflationary factor is that he's comparing to. And so in this case, for next year, it's 2.64%. So the last couple of years, that inflationary factor is what I've used in our sales tax projections. But an additional change this year was that, as you may have heard, and we talked about it at Admin Services this month, the sales tax on short-term rentals has gone into effect. And so we will begin to receive additional new sales tax, whereas sales tax was not collected on short-term rentals previously. So we will see that benefit beginning this fourth quarter and then, you know, through next year. So I did plan for, I looked at what we're budgeting for occupancy tax because that's collected at 5% and took 4/5 of that number and added that to our sales tax projections for next year.
Kitty, will that be taken care of by like the Airbnb companies like they do
No.
with?
Well, yes, I mean, the platforms will be collecting and, the
For us.
sales tax, and that gets remitted to New York State, just like all sales tax does. And then we receive it back from the state with our
But I know
regular
they
sales
take
tax.
care of the occupancy tax.
Pardon?
They take care of the occupancy tax part. Like,
Yes, the platforms are required, yeah.
so they're gonna do this
We-
sales tax also.
So they are required to do the sales tax no matter what.
Okay.
Yes. The discussion that we had about how we were, I can't remember, were you not?
I was absent.
Okay, yeah, so we had a discussion about what the county will need to do for short-term rental collections going forward, so that's kind of a whole discussion. If you want to talk about that a little bit now, we can, but that'll be an ongoing conversation in admin services, and,
I'll talk to you about it, yeah.
okay.
So, but I'm a little confused. It says real property taxes, but we're also talking sales tax, and that's in line.
That's the classification description, and, I'm sorry, I'm reading my rows wrong. So, yeah, so that very first row where there's no, comments, that's just the real property tax, classification. I was referring to the next classification down. The non-property tax items is where the sales tax is.
I got you, okay.
Sorry. Just additionally, the off-track betting revenue is also included in that non-property tax items number, and that's kind of trending down a little bit. I mean, whereas the last couple of years it trended up after, I think, the change in sports betting occurred, but now we're kind of seeing it taper off a bit, or flatten out anyhow.
How are we on track this year?
For sales tax, so
Yeah.
right now, we're tracking very close to our budget. We're about maybe $200,000 on the plus side right now. So our next payment comes probably sometime next week. So I'll update you when we get that payment. But, we really have been tracking really plus or minus a couple $100,000, so far this year to our budget. Just also, our budget worksheet is budgeted by payment. We typically get 2 payments a month of sales tax from the state. So we apply the percent increase that we're projecting by payment to come up with our projections.
So, comment I made yesterday is we were not close on our guesstimations of a certain department, and we aren't within that couple $100,000 range, we're way off. But with the sales tax, historically, we are within that couple $100,000 range, so that's great.
Try to be.
So, good work on that, because that is really boy, I could go one way or another really fast. And
Yeah.
Good work on that. And I would trust that through the research that you put into that again, as you have in the past, hopefully it continues to do that. So, sometimes it's an area where you say, well, we'll just show some more revenue in the sales tax and we'll hopefully achieve it. But
Yeah.
it's really dangerous to do that. So if this is where you're comfortable at,
Well, I mean, this is, so, well, just, we've talked in the past, about, so the second half of the year, and especially the fourth quarter, is where we have the bulk of our, that's the biggest quarter of sales tax, as, for the reasons you would imagine. And so, it will be interesting to see if we do stay up with our budget, through this quarter and next. Things like tariffs, I don't think have fully kicked in, but we really haven't seen a downturn in the things that people want to spend money on. So, consumerism hasn't really slowed down yet, that we've seen, but it is something that is a little bit, for me, I feel like, I'm a little anxious to see how our fourth quarter, sales tax payments come in for those reasons. And then it could be a factor into next year too. So this is kind of, the budget is kind of based on what, it's been like the last couple of years. So if we do start to see different, changes related to those kind of factors, that could impact our budget. But I kind of budgeted status quo in a sense, so. All right, the next classification, other real property tax items. The main components are two accounts here, so it includes the gain loss on our tax sale. So in 2024, we did not hold an auction, and the 25 and 26 budgets assumed auction with no net gain. But interest and penalties are projected just based on our average of the last 2 years actual. So we continually collect interest and penalties throughout the year. People will come in and they might be paying late or partial payment, so there's interest and penalties collected, throughout the year, not just at the time of the auction. But my current, now with the fact that we have to put any surplus over the taxes owing into escrow to per the, changes at the, this based on the Supreme Court ruling, that any surplus, the homeowner could claim that surplus, and those funds would go, any funds over the taxes owing would go back to the homeowner. So we'll never have a gain on our auction that would, come back to the county. So generally speaking, we would, not all properties, the bids come in at the taxes owing, some come in less than that. So based on our most recent auction, the early estimates, it looked like we'll have about a $340,000 loss to the county. So this would indicate our budget is off by that much should we have the, now keep in mind that's for 2 years worth of properties. So it is a little bit hard to project what the net loss is going to be. We never know what the bids are going to come in at, but even if you look back before COVID, that it could be plus or minus any year. That it's really, there's nothing that, there's no trend, so to speak. But right now, there's no, what's included in the budget is net zero. So if we have a loss, we would, have.
Do we have a dollar amount that we are setting aside above the?
I think, it's just under $2 million. It might have been like 1.6 million or something. I just
Okay.
did the calculations. I was more focused on this number than that.
Oh, no,
but-
yeah. Well, and that stuff is still.
And it's,
moving
it's not
target.
fully reconciled yet, and not everyone has come in and paid yet, so
Right.
those aren't the final numbers. That's just my current projection based on all the bids so far.
What I was going to say about that is, and we have to hold that for 3 years?
Yeah, so.
So there is a chance in 3
Some-
years.
But that goes, I think, to unclaimed funds. I don't know if it comes back, actually back to the county.
Oh, I thought,
I can't remember, but
Okay.
I'll have to ask Kim.
okay. I was just thinking, so every year,
Yeah.
we have the possibility, if that money was coming back to us, to get what was unclaimed, yes.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember hearing somebody say it goes to unclaimed funds, but that might have been something else. But
Okay.
for those of you who are not familiar, any surplus on the sale, so if the taxes owed were $10,000, but the bid came in at 30, 20,000 of it is gonna sit in escrow, waiting for that property owner can come and claim that surplus. It doesn't automatically get sent to them. They actually have to go through a claim process to claim it. And it's handled, through the court system. but we have to hold it in escrow for approximately 3 years to allow for that claim process to occur.
Where's the interest go that's earned from that? Do we get to keep that?
I don't know.
What? Well, we earn an interest on it, right? So
I don't recall.
it's a question.
Kim
before
probably
you
knows
get
the
into
answer.
that
It's all too new.
But,
Yeah, this is the first year that you know.
no, and the point I want to make too is that you said it was a loss of 345,000. It's also an addition of the taxes that we made correct to the towns and villages. So it cost us 345 in revenue we didn't receive, but it also cost us what we paid out to them and made right? So it's really, whatever that is, it could be an extra $100,000 that we paid out to the municipalities, right? So, I mean, that I have to calculate that as a loss, because we actually did pay that out too, and made it right in those years.
We didn't
So,
collect that.
and that we didn't collect it back, you know, so it's 345 we didn't collect or didn't get up to what was owed, but we also did pay and make it right to those other towns, whatever that percentage is. So it's really
I think it works a little differently than that, but I'll send you the email that I know Todd sent to Bob that explains all that.
But that's the way it is, you know.
But don't ask me.
So,
Yes.
That's the way it is, you know, that's the way it simply looks.
no, this is new based on a Supreme Court ruling a couple of years ago now.
And this is how it is until they change it, so. I shouldn't say that. I did.
All right, so then the next category is departmental income, and what's recorded here are indirect cost allocations. So, for those of you that are not familiar with this, so this, we have a, calculation on what our indirect costs are, what you might consider overhead and G&A costs in the private sector. And those, G&A and overhead costs, are allocated to our enterprise funds because they do need to record them as an expense, and that then is recorded as a revenue back on the county book. So that applies to our sewer districts and landfill and energy plant, so they are charged an
And water
allocation of sewer and water districts, yeah. And that is recorded back as a revenue, so that's offsetting the G&A and overhead costs. So it includes, you know.
Can you just explain more what the,
Yeah, it's just.
what the functions are that are charged
Yeah,
back?
so it's just starting. Yeah, so the county executive's office, purchasing, payroll, human resources, county attorney's office, buildings and grounds, depreciation, all of those things are captured, and each of them have a different methodology on how they're allocated. And then that charge is charged to those enterprise funds.
Thank you.
Use of property and money, that's where our interest earnings on just our bank balances. This is not our investment portfolio account, so this is just miscellaneous bank accounts that we receive interest earnings. Then just to note, in 2024, we had recorded the ARPA interest earnings that were utilized in the 2024 budget in this account. Under miscellaneous, this is where, for those of you who were here yesterday when we discussed with the health department, the opioid settlement funds that are offsetting some of the MAT expenses. This revenue is recorded here. So that is the bulk of that. So that is offsetting expenses in the health department. But the state requires us to record it in this account here, so. And then, under New York State aid, so the tribal compact, this is a little bit of a risk area, I'd say, or I shouldn't say a little bit, I mean it is. For those of you familiar with the tribal compact, for a while, the county had been receiving compact revenues, and then there was a dispute. that went on a couple of years. This dispute was settled, we started getting the payments again, now there's a new dispute. So the payments stopped again, and what I've included in the budget is not the full amount of what we had been budgeting the last couple of years, but I looked at the last quarterly payment that we did receive and assumed that quarterly amount in 2026. I know that there's work being done on it. The county executive has, reached out to inquire, what the status is. So we know there's discussions happening, but it is kind of hard to say when it might be settled. But whenever it does get settled, we would expect to have a retroactive payment in any case. So just want to be transparent there.
Maybe by Friday, could we?
I don't think it's going to be by Friday.
Historically, it takes years.
Yeah, so we'll see.
2 years from Friday.
Yeah, 2 years from Friday. All right, the 1330 roll org set. So this is where we do allocate the staff costs for a couple of the partial of the people in the tax office to this account, because we, as you know, we do prepare the tax rolls for some other municipalities and school districts, so that expense is here, and then we do charge fees for that, so that offsets the cost of doing their tax rolls. The tax assessment account, so this is where we budget some funding in the event that we have a challenge to an assessment and we need to hire outside counsel. We've haven't had any expenses here in several years. We generally have kept about 15,000 just in case. We dropped it down to 5,000. So if we do have a challenge and we need to incur legal fees, and if they're more than 5,000, we would be seeking to amend this budget in some way. The next account, 1362, this is the search and legal fees associated and postage on foreclosed properties. And then we do charge fees when the property is sold, so those fees are collected at that time, so they're generally offsetting the expenses here. The next account, 1430, countywide employee expense. This is the cost under the CSEA collective bargaining agreement. The county is obligated to pay the salary of the CSEA president. And so the cost of whoever is serving, their salary and benefits are charged to this account. The next item, 1955, is our payments in lieu of taxes. We did see a significant increase here. While that looks good here, it does impact our tax cap limit calculation. So that calculation of what our allowable increase is for the tax cap is reduced when you have an incremental change in your pilot payments. So.
And the increase in pilot payments is offset by a decrease in property taxes.
Well, yes, essentially, bottom line is, but it reduces our ability to increase the levy to stay under the tax cap.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was not referring to the cap calculation.
Yes.
I was just referring
Yes.
to total revenue for the.
Correct. It would be in lieu of property taxes.
Right.
Municipal sales tax, so this is the share of sales tax that goes to the municipalities. Accounting standards require us to record that as an expense and a revenue to the county, so the state sends it to us, we have to record it as a revenue, but we pay it out to the municipalities quarterly.
Well, that prompted me a question on the last one. My understanding is that we don't issue pilots. The IDA doesn't issue pilots unless the local municipality is also granted hosting agreement, is that right?
That's correct. That is correct. That's the policy of IDA.
So, it's policy though, not law.
It's policy. Kitty, you're indicating that the municipal sales tax is going up by $1,607,000. The real property tax in the miscellaneous department is going up $1,704,000. Why are those so close together?
I don't, it's just coincidence.
Coincidence? So we're giving the municipalities almost as much sales tax as we are receiving additionally?
No, there's other things included in the, besides sales tax in the non-property tax items. For example, the off-track betting revenue is included. Was it, so the property tax, the 1.7, that's just property tax. The next row down is the non-property tax items, the 2.2 million is the sales tax.
Okay, that's the 2.2. Thank you. Your little blank box there confused me.
I know, it confused me too. Okay, the contingent account, we have not included any contingency in the 2026 budget. Community college tuition, so this is the cost for any Chautauqua County residents attending community college. Primarily, the cost is the cost for students at JCC, but if they're going to another community college, we pay that. The budget is increased based on a 2% over last year's adopted budget amount, and that's based on our floor ceiling model that was agreed a couple years back. And we are tracking pretty close to what we had budgeted for this year. The fire service loan grant, so that's just a reserve fund where we are allowed to, we can make grants to local fire departments. They pay us back with interest, so that's just the repayment of those loans. Debt service, this is just our, the county's principal and interest on our outstanding debt. There's a couple of revenues that are dedicated to that repayment, so mortgage tax, the mortgage tax receipts are dedicated to offset debt payments. Based on current trends, we're not seeing incremental gains as we have seen in the past, in the recent past, so that budget was reduced $90,000. Under departmental income, one of our bonds that we issued was on behalf of JCC when they built their third dorm, and they pay the full debt service on that, but we have to record it as the expense, and then the revenue from them is the accounting treatment for that. And then for the court project way back in 2006 when I first started, when the court, when they constructed the current entrance to the GOB, New York State does offer a subsidy for the interest and principal on that, so that's revenue is there to offset that debt service. And then our transfers to other funds, so these are just the transfers to the D and the DM funds, or the highway and road machinery funds. It's in essence their share, it's the local share covered by the real property tax for those two funds. So that's shown as an interfund transfer. And that's...
Okay, why did we see a reduction there?
Because the net expense of the D and the DM funds went down 236,000. So when you see the public facilities budgets, that will be reflected in there.
I'm a little new to this. Why is there a fund involved anyway? Why isn't it just a road expense?
It's governmental accounting, so that the highway funds and road machinery funds, so the D and the DM funds, they're not considered enterprise funds. They do factor into the calculation of the property tax levy. But one caveat with them is those funds they do have their own fund balances, and like with road work, for example, that can be impacted with weather and such. But when the budget is adopted, those funds are appropriated for that purpose. So any unspent funds remain in the D or the DM fund and can only be reappropriated within those two funds for highway work.
I think what I hear is we're using fund accounting. So once
Yeah.
we budget something for roads and bridges, it stays in roads and bridges.
That's a simple way to put it. Yeah, just like the general fund, like the surplus of one of our other funds, like enterprise funds, which are, our sewer and water districts and land, they're self-sustaining funds, like their surplus or deficits don't impact the general fund. They're meant to stay within their fund. So we have a lot of funds. So you'll see a couple of more as we get through this presentation.
Right. But those enterprises are kind of independent entities, whereas our roads department is not.
It
But
is
even so,
treated, it's the accounting, the standard accounting treatment of governmental accounting in New York State is the highway and road machinery funds are separate funds. And we have to record those expenditures and revenues in those two funds. But when we get to the projections and the local share spreadsheet, you'll see how the levy is calculated, including the A, D, and DM funds make up the three funds that go into the
No,
calculation.
thanks, it's just kind of
Yeah.
a different
Yeah.
way of doing things.
Just government accounting.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
And then very lastly is the transfer to capital, and this is, something got cut off here. Our interest earnings are recorded as the revenue and in the expense there. So this is the interest earnings are recorded here, and then those interest earnings are dedicated for capital projects. So the expense here is the interfund transfer from the A fund to the HH fund, which is our capital fund. So capital projects, which we'll go over in public facilities, what capital projects are proposed for next year. But the interest earnings are dedicated revenue toward capital projects. So what is approved in the capital plan, whatever we are earning in interest earnings, we'll see as an expense here for the interfund transfer of those interest earnings into each of the projects in the HH fund.
So just to elaborate a little bit, all interest earnings are dedicated to capital expense,
So
capital revenue.
the bigger the rainy day fund we have, the more interest earnings head towards capital projects?
Yes, they're all dedicated to capital projects.
Mhm.
There are other revenue sources used for capital
Oh,
projects.
also, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
Understood.
all interest earnings are dedicated to capital projects.
interest earnings of the general fund.
Right.
So the county does pool its cash,
Mhm.
and then the allocation of interest earnings is based on the cash balance of each of the funds. So like the enterprise funds will also receive a share of the interest earnings, but the interest earnings applied to the general fund are dedicated to capital projects.
Got it.
It's 10:30.
10:30?
It's like natural break time. So
Good job.
Thank
take our 15-minute break and See you all on the other side. All right, we are back from our break. We are going to continue with self-insurance. Yes? Oh, fund balance. I'm looking at numbers.
Can I go back to miscellaneous for the question?
Now, I'm sorry, we've passed through there, and you could, yes, go ahead. Always wanted to say that, Pierre.
You told us to be polite. Okay, so miscellaneous revenue for, I guess it was, anyway, you indicated that OTB revenue, you reduced it by nearly 10%. The mid-year financial report that we just got from OTP indicates they're projecting that our distributions in this year will be a 46% increase from 2024 because of all the good things that they're doing with OTB. So I would ask that you revisit your projection for OTB and consider their most recent mid-year financial report that we just received in the last week or two.
Okay, sure. I mean, I'll do that, yeah, with this afternoon when you're doing other accounts.
Or by Friday.
But, I mean, you can see that our 2024 actual revenue was $379,000. And our 2025 budget is $440,000. So, but I'll look at our most recent receipts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
Okay, so, for fund balances, if you could kind of refer to two schedules at the same time. One would be your projections, which were in the sleeve of your binder, along with Schedule 1, which is in the budget book. So if you go to the very front of your book, and then, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 tab, 4, the tabs in is fiscal status. And you'll see Schedule 1, it's just one page. And actually, like, if real quick too, before we start with that, just the very first tab there that says operating budget, just for real quick, I'll just, want to note, this is what we've referred to as the local share summary, where it kind of lays out all of the county's funds. So the general fund, DM, all other funds. And then across the top, you can see the formula that is used to calculate the tax levy. So column A plus column B minus C minus D minus E minus F equals column G to total the tax levy of $74,961,000. The other funds have no impact on the tax levy. So if you get then down to the bottom, you'll see the full valuation and then the calculation of the tax rate. The page after that is the previous year budget, and then the third page shows the change year to year. Then in reference to fund balances, we have column E there, shows what uses of fund balance we used in the 2026 budget. We did include, so the collective, this might be another answer to your question, Legislator Johnson. So in the collective bargaining agreements, there are one-time bonuses. They are not added to the base pay. We kind of intentionally structured that so it would be kind of a recruitment and retention mechanism. So that would also account for what is appearing to be a greater than, year-to-year change in wages, when you're looking at that compared to inflation per se.
I
So,
remember that from committee.
yeah, I should have thought to mention that earlier. So, because that's not added to the base and considered a long-term recurring cost, we have utilized fund balance to offset the cost of those one-time bonuses, and we did so again in the 2026 budget. So that was approximately, $1,084,000. There was, the next row there is, and I'm gonna ask the budget director to help me out here to remember everything that's included under the use of general fund balance of $1,337,000. So that includes, trying to remember, I don't have my notes here. Oh, yeah, half.
The safety net increase, and then I believe also a half of the new fly car.
Yeah.
There's a new fly car district essentially that's being established, and it's half of that as well.
And then a couple of miscellaneous items. I'll get you the full list.
I'm getting here right.
Oh,
I'm
okay, getting there. Yeah,
As
so
long as it's in the notes.
$600,000 was used to offset the increase in safety net, and that represents half of the safety net increase in local share. And then you'll see under public safety, there is an increase for the fly car program where they're adding additional.
For the Clymer district.
Clymer
yep.
district. And so fund balance was used in consideration. It's somewhat of a startup cost. At some point, we would expect it to be more closer to, I don't want to always say break even, but so fund balance was used to offset some of that year-to-year increase for that Clymer district. And
Why is this safety net bump a one-time thing?
when we were discussing yesterday, that we do anticipate safety net, while we're still seeing an increase, at some point we believe it'll come back down or plateau, so we won't have incremental changes year to year. So we did utilize fund balance to fund half of that increase in safety net costs, with the expectation that we should see that cost come down sometime in the future. That was the rationalization of it, so if somebody would like to propose a change in that use of fund balance, we can look at
I think
other.
when you use the rationalization that's dead on, I guess the question is, do we really want to do that?
So we considered it to not be a recurring cost, and so, but we didn't want to fund all of it with fund balance, so.
I understand the math, but
yeah.
it's just, given the way that thing's going, it may bounce up and down, but it's headed
Yeah.
north.
Well, if we do think it's going to be a reoccurring cost, then in my view, aside, if you're either choosing to cut other county services, or you're right-sizing the tax levy to include that new recurring cost and increasing the taxes for that expense that you know is going to be recurring.
Yes.
And that's important, because we can understand that it is reoccurring because it has reoccurred the last couple of years.
And just everything we hear sounds like, okay, I mean, it may zigzag, but it's headed, north. In terms of more people qualify and all the rest of it. But your two solutions are correct, I think.
There are two options, sure.
Yeah.
But, our experience in developing a budget is there's not generally a consensus to exceed the tax cap, so that's the other constraint we have, is to stay under the tax cap. It requires a vote of the legislature to override the tax cap.
Well, I would go with option A first and option B second, but I think either one of them is more honest than doing what we're doing.
I wouldn't say that what we're doing is dishonest. It's
I don't
it's
mean-
utilizing the fund balance to,
Let's say
in lieu of raising the taxes or reducing county services.
Mhm.
So, no one likes to do either, I know.
So one has to make a motion in what environment to do one of those two things.
Well, I mean, since today's meeting is the Administrative Services Committee, I mean, it would, if their committee wished to make a motion to make a change for that, they could. Otherwise, I would assume that would fall under the Audit and Control Committee when you meet on Friday. But, you know, generally, because we are right at the tax cap, it's, any adjustments at this point would need to be self-balancing. So if you're gonna say, make an amendment to not use fund balance, you would need to find an offsetting expense reduction of equal value or a revenue of equal value to offset that reduction on the use of fund balance.
Okay.
So this week, we've been tallying anything that we find or locate, and hopefully, I think that this is an evident hole that we have discovered through the budgeting process that we are concerned about, and also is it a correct utilization of the fund balance to pay for this expense that's reoccurring? It's definitely something that that will be in consideration, I believe, on Friday. Just as Pierre just asked a question, is to reinvestigate the potential revenue for, you know, some of that could
Off-track
be,
betting.
yes, the off-track betting revenue, if that could get adjusted, that could directly impact this as well. We could say, let's take an extra $400,000 of anticipated revenue and then put that in place of this. You know, so there's some other potentials that we've already discovered, so hopefully that would be the case.
To see how the week goes, and then
At the end of the
see where
week,
we're at the end of the week.
if we didn't find that much stuff and we really wanted to look at this further, the tax cap solution could be an option.
Or
So we may be cutting the timeline to allow for an override of the tax cap, because you have to do that in advance. You'd have to vote on that. I think you would have had to have voted on it already this month. It if you really were interested in doing that, would have to have the law department check the timeline. You might require a special meeting of the legislature in terms of the steps involved with that.
That's correct, but
Or we could defer adoption of the budget until November.
Correct, yeah, so that's what I mean. In some way, you would have to have a special meeting, whether it's a November early meeting of,
Could do it at the October legislature meeting and then adopt the budget at the November legislature.
true, yeah.
I mean, I'm not part of that committee, but, well, I am audit and control, but my motion would be that what we can't cover of that from the savings we found, like off-track betting, we'll go back to the county executive and just ask him to cover it where he thinks it's most appropriate within his overall budget. I mean,
Well, at
rather than
this
our
point of the
pick for-
process, the budget is with the legislature to determine where they want to make amendments.
So, you know, right now it is in our hands. Now, in the past, in the past, we have decided to just do as you stated. It has been done before, but I think hopefully we can find stuff throughout the week that'll help us, so that we don't have to do any of those things, but
Okay. For Friday.
certainly make a note of it, and we'll be discussing it Friday for sure.
Good deal. Thank you.
So I have now all of the items that make up the 1.3 million. So there was already discussed $600,000 of fund balance utilized to cover half of the local share increase of safety net, $262,000 covering 100% of the fly car increase for the Clymer district, $300,000 added back for the lake fund, and $175,000 covering increases in the county attorney's office. That offset of fund balance of $175,000 is due to the need to currently outsource some legal services, and until newer staff is up and trained and more familiar, they expect that they will be able to discontinue the use of outside counsel. So we consider that to be a one-year expense in 2026. So fund balance was utilized to offset that one-year cost. Additionally, under the 3%, further down the next couple of rows, this year, 2025, was the last year for the designation of fund balance that will cover the helicopter debt, so that's over and done with. We did not utilize any additional capital reserve toward capital projects next year. We used, you'll see when occupancy, planning and development budget is reviewed, there's $135,000 of the 3% reserve that covers some of the projects in the occupancy budget. That's also an exhibit here. At the end of this section, you'll see all of the allocations of occupancy tax. So the last few pages in this current section behind the local share spreadsheet. And then under the 2% portion, they're budgeting to have a surplus that would be returned to the 2% reserve, which currently has a deficit. The D fund is utilizing $600,000 of D fund balance. The mechanics of the D fund, is that, unspent funds in this year, mainly that would be due to weather events. Often they can't complete all the road work planned, et cetera, or maybe we have a good winter and don't have to use as much salt or overtime for plowing. So any of that surplus stays in the D fund and is just reappropriated within the D fund for highway maintenance. And then the D fund, the road machinery fund, utilized $100,000 of fund balance there, which is I believe the same amount as used in the 2025 budget for both of those funds. So that is the review of the uses of fund balance. Then, back to Schedule 1, which is the fiscal status tab. So on this schedule, just provides for you the fund balance in each of the county funds. And it shows the balance as of 2024 per our financial statements, which were filed yesterday. And our estimated balance at the end of this year before we have to assign them for the subsequent year, so it's a little timing issue. So then the 2026 balance reflects the fund balance at the end of 2026 before any designations of fund balance for the 2027 budget, which we don't know yet. You'll see that in the projections, but it's not reflected here.
And Kitty, just to clarify, the balance at the end of 2024 does reflect the assignment for subsequent year budgets.
It includes the assignment of the fund balance for 2025.
Yes. And so we really have apples and oranges here when we look at 2024 compared to the projection or the estimates for 2025 and 2026.
You mean the projection handout?
No, Schedule 1. Because if, from your projection handout, your estimated balance after assignment for subsequent year budgets at the end of this year is $37,154,000. And your estimate for the end of 2026, after assignment for subsequent year budgets, is $36,134,000. So my point is that 2024 balances after assignment, and your estimates for 2025 and 2026 are before assignment, so.
Yeah, I was gonna go through the projections
Yep.
so that we could, but, just wanna make sure you have the
Of course I do.
version, so, because I'm. So there's, the assignment of fund balance is recorded at the end of the year. So for 2025, our 2025 ending financial statements will have reserved the assignment of fund balance for whatever is utilized in the 2026 budget, because from, you know, the financial statements are saying that we've reserved those funds as of the end of 2025, because you've said in the budget you're gonna use them in 2026. So. Anyhow. So this just gives you a sense of where everything is on all the individual funds. The projections, which is was the handout in your binder. Just, we can go into it as much or little detail, but I just want you to understand what these are, what, you know, what you can utilize them for. These 5-year projections are simply based on a set of assumptions. In, you know, other years, maybe we've done more than one scenario for you to look at, so certainly I can generate other projections based on other sets of assumptions, but.
So, Katie, in that regard, your projection for year-end 2025 that you have presented, does that reflect our current understanding of the use of fund balance for safety net?
So, can I defer that question a little bit? I just want people to understand how this is set up, and then we'll get back to some questions. So, these are the assumptions used for the out year on this page. The next page just shows our 2025 adopted budget column, the 2026 tentative budget, and then based on the 2026 budget and our set of assumptions on the previous page, how the costs would be projected out in the out years. The next page shows the same thing with the revenues, and then the page after that shows the resulting operating surplus or deficit before the use of any fund balances.
What tabs are you in now?
On the
I'm looking
handout.
at B1,
handout.
exhibit B1.
Yeah, so as you're going through there, you get to the page that's showing revenues, and then the page after that, the first row says operating surplus or deficit. So that's the operating surplus or deficit before the use of any fund balance. Then you see your uses of fund balance. So of course, for this year, you're going to have no net surplus because we've presented a balanced budget with the uses of fund balance identified. The projections indicate, it also includes the assumption that we will increase taxes up to the limit each year. So that's one of the assumptions. So if we do that, all the other expenses, all the other revenues calculated based on the assumptions for 2027, it would reflect that we have a deficit of $138,000 to make up somehow. The next year, 1.1, then getting out to 2030, it shows that we would have a surplus of $1 million. So there's various factors that make that true in terms of the math of how this is put together. So that's how that is laid out. For 2027, it assumes one more year that we would use fund balance for the collective bargaining agreement, one-time bonuses. It doesn't project out any use of fund balance thereafter. Then the next page shows you our projection of fund balance based on the previous pages. The 2025 projected column assumes in the big picture that we will meet our budget. So although we have used fund balance in our amended budget this year for the safety net increases, the budget amendment passed this month, that there would be other surpluses that would offset that by the end of this year. So I did not include any other adjustment to fund balance for 2025 in projecting out the next several years' fund balance.
So the answer to my question is yes, you did anticipate the additional use of fund balance for safety net in your projection for 2025?
Yes, yeah. So this shows our unassigned fund balance at the end of 2024. And then there are designations, so designations aren't technically reserves, they're just what we've designated as a use of fund balance. So you won't see the designations listed out on our financial statements that way. But that first shaded bar, unassigned general fund balance for 2024, $39,374,000. Then for 2025 ending includes the 2 million. You'll see a few rows above that, the row for assigned for subsequent years' budgets. Okay. That 2.4 million represents the amount that we have proposed to use in the 2026 budget. So by the end of 2027, or 2026, sorry, getting my years mixed up. The end of 2025, the unassigned general fund balance would be 37,217,000. So it's just off a little bit from what's in Schedule 1. And then the fund balance is projected out the remaining years. And then the last, toward the bottom, the shaded bar shows what that is as a percentage of appropriations.
So, question on the prior page, CBNA bonuses. We were discussing that a little while ago, but it looks like it happened in '25.
Yes.
It's forecast to happen in '26, and it's forecast to happen in '27.
That's what the model assumes, yes.
Right. If that's what we really think, then that sounds like we're going to do that every time we have a contract.
No, because that's the last year of the current contract.
Right. And how long does the contract run?
Well, they generally have been, the last several contracts have been 4-year agreements.
Right.
So the CSCA contract and the CCSCA contracts that have the one-time bonuses in them end in 2027 and will need to be renegotiated.
Okay. But so, should we reasonably expect that every 4 years we're going to have, as these contracts roll over, have one of those bonuses?
No.
Okay.
Could it happen? Yes.
Well, it's just, if we do, then it ceases to be a one-time expense. If we don't, then,
Correct. I mean,
then
it's
then
not.
I'll remember the raise came if it comes around next time.
Yeah, I mean, in general, there's a lot of factors that go into, negotiations and other offsetting things that are negotiated.
I've been there.
Yeah. All right, so that's the overview. I know it's a lot of information. If you have any questions later in the week or any time, please feel free to reach out. But just wanted to make sure you went through what's included in your binders. All right. If there's no other question on fund balance, we can move on to self-insurance, which is tab 43, which you kind of have already approved. Give me a second to get there. So this is our self-insurance fund, which is the workers' comp fund. I think it was last month, August, I guess, we approved the rates, essentially, that we have a workers' comp municipal program that the county administers, so all the municipalities except for one participate. And the claims are recorded here and then charges out to the municipalities in terms of, premiums are collected. So we were able to reduce the overall budget a bit based on, our good claims experience. So it's a pretty straightforward budget. This is where a portion of the 1988, 1989, two of my staff, some of their cost is charged here as the administrative cost for running the workers' comp plan. So that's included in the assessments that we charge out to municipalities.
So when we self-insure on workers' comp, are we still bound by the same you qualify, you don't qualify rules as they're generally in place in New York State in terms of what's a compensable claim and what isn't?
Yeah, it's all governed by the state, and we have a municipal self-insured plan.
Right, so we administer it and take the ups and downs, but what it is, we pay out on circumstance X, Y, or Z as a function of what the overall state regulations are.
But Kitty, I think we ought to highlight that the Insurance Administration Department helps municipalities and county departments with safety evaluations and improving the safety of the work environment, so potentially reducing future workers' compensation claims. And from my experience, they've been very, very successful at that. And that's why I think we're seeing the workers' compensation claims trending down over the last several years because of the good work they've been doing in that area.
Yeah. Additionally, Dennis is pretty proactive in looking for opportunities to settle claims to reduce our long-term exposure. So there's not as many left because he's done a lot of work to settle quite a number of claims since he's been on board with the county.
Good.
Any other questions on that? Can you quickly?
I think it's just noteworthy that this seems to be beneficial for most, obviously the county, but also most municipalities, because we have all but one participating. Even with our readjustment a couple of years ago, seems to be a benefit that we do provide for our other municipalities. And it's a cost savings for them too, so, yeah, good program.
I think I'd like to add, most importantly, the time savings for them, because not all of those municipalities have full-time employees to have somebody like Dennis, who can chase down and try to close those cases.
All right, so we can move on to the tab 98, liability insurance. This is the fund where we accumulate all of the costs associated with all of the various liability type policies that we have, from medical malpractice, property, auto, cyber, you know, and a few others. So all of that is paid out of, all those premiums are paid out of this fund. Any, you know, deductibles, you know, that sort of thing. Are paid out of here along with the administrative costs. So another share of Dennis and Aki's time are allocated here as the administrative cost. And then the allocation of the premiums and administrative fees are charged back to county departments. Each of the various insurance premiums have a separate allocation methodology. So, for example, auto insurance is only charged back to the departments that have automobiles. You know, property is shared with kind of everyone based on the number of FTEs and square footage that their department occupies, things like that. So, in essence, it all gets charged back to across the county. Some of the revenues that offset the cost of the premiums are include like interest earnings I mentioned earlier. Our cash is pooled and invested, and then it goes back to each of the funds based on the balance, cash balance at the end of each month. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you have any questions on any kind of individual policies.
Could you talk about the increase in contractual for property loss? The property deductible is what your note says for airports?
Oh, well, so for, yeah, so a couple things here, so I should have, we did make a change in how we're accounting for deductibles, but we also, in 2024, that reflects with the crash at the airport and the insurance recoveries. So we receive the insurance recoveries into the CS fund, and then we pay out all of the expenses related to the repairs out of here. We did decide in this year for mainly it's vehicle claims, rather than have we would, in the past, we would get the insurance recovery monies, record it here, but then do a budget amendment to move it to the department when they replace the equipment. So rather than doing that, to make it a little bit more efficient to get through that process and make sure everything is accounted for properly, we moved everything under the CS fund. So any of the departments that have a vehicle claim, the insurance recoveries are now going to be in the CS fund, and then the, you know, the either replacement or repair will be recorded here. The departments will still be charged their deductible, you know, at the end of the year, so they will still incur the deductible costs, but it just makes it more efficient for us to make sure the claim is handled properly. So that is the change here, where that $200,000 expense in revenue here.
Does that just avoid a budget amendment for us to have to vote on that in order to?
Yeah, well, it avoids that, but it also avoids other, this makes, you know, Dennis handles the whole thing from start to finish, so it just keeps it all within one department. It's makes it a more efficient to manage the claim.
We'll still have to amend it later to charge it back, because we just won't have to amend it.
We won't charge it back other than, at the end of the year, Dennis will do a journal entry to charge the deductible back to the department, so they know they'll have that expense. It won't require a budget amendment.
So property insurance, we don't self-insure, but we do.
We purchase through the New York State Insurance Reciprocal, so it's like a pooled insurance pool for New York State, and all of our premiums, I think, well, actually, cyber now we purchase through that reciprocal pool.
Now, so that's on
We're
property.
not self-funding all of the liability.
So there's property, right, then, you know, car crash, whatever, replace the car. But then there's liability, which is flip side of that. I presume don't self-insure liability, though we might have a reasonable deductible. But on the property side, busted cars, what have you, what would be the potential cost savings of self-insuring that?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we get, with it being a New York State government pool, it was designed specifically to benefit, for us to get the best rates rather than purchasing it, you know.
Well, there's just, at least
So-
in economics, there's, if one is big enough to afford the risk as in beta, just the variability of cash flows, one is big enough to afford the risk, one should take it oneself as opposed to pay somebody else to take it. And so, at the size of our operation, banging up a few cars is a risk we could easily take. So, kind of how do we look at that?
I can ask Dennis to look into that.
Okay. Whereas a significant liability claim is perhaps a risk we might not want to take, and therefore we would buy insurance for that. But usually that's the rule. If you can afford to take the bumps, you insure yourself. Unless there's a hidden subsidy in what the state's doing for us.
But Fred, I would point out that property loss is not just banged up cars, but if you look at 2024, there was $1.3 million in an airport property loss.
So that was cleaning up after that
Correct.
jet line.
Correct.
Yeah, repairing the runway, you know, those sorts of
So
things.
property loss is not just banged up cars.
I understand, and you might argue that our self-insurance is by way of large deductibles.
Yeah, I mean, we have had fires in our history, the whole building in Dunkirk, floods,
Mhm. But, again, well, so, you know, it's how in the $300 million budget, how big a whack is $1 million?
well, it would come right out of the fund balance, essentially.
Sure,
Yeah.
but over time, that's less than 1/3%. Anyway,
Yeah. The overall, you know, expense for, what is covered is, as you can see, about 1.9 million in total.
mhm.
You know, we have about a dozen different policies.
Wow.
Katie, what were the big legal expenses for 2025? Services?
So those include like settlements for, we outsource, some legal work related to harassment claims and things like, some things along those lines. So if we have a settlement, that would get paid out of this fund.
Okay. Are we expecting, or do we have open cases that we're expecting to close in 26?
We don't really budget that way, so, I mean, we kind of budget for like a nominal amount, so there's something there. But if we were to become aware of a significant, but that always comes to you, to vote on anyways, any settlements. And if it would require a significant budget amendment, it would be proposed along with the resolution to settle pay out the claim.
It's just significantly higher than what we had budgeted for 25, and obviously we exceeded that by a lot. In 23 and 24, we're only 37,000 and 24,000, so I guess I was just looking at that. We dropped it down to 7,000 about in 25, and we're putting it up to 65,000 in 26.
Yeah, we've previously been budgeting about 35,000. Are there any other questions on the liability program? Okay, next up then is the health insurance fund. So, this is another fund where we accumulate all the costs in here, and they ultimately get charged out to our county departments. The costs for, so these are all costs related to the health plan, administration of the health plan, and retiree benefits are all expensed here. And then we are self-funded for our health insurance plan, and there's two charges back to departments. One is based on the employee's individual level of coverage, so it's single, family of 2, or family of 3 plan. And then there's another charge back to county departments for the retiree. It's mainly retiree expenses. It's a health insurance surcharge, so you'll see that as a 0.8 line item in any department that has employees, and that is for the costs associated with retirement benefits as well as other county-sponsored benefits. For example, the Employee Assistance Program, EAP, that's not built into the health plan costs. It's just a benefit that the county provides its employees, so that's just paid by the county. So there's a couple of small costs like that for the administration of those county-sponsored benefits. But the majority of that health insurance surcharge is for retirement benefits, so the benefits that, for people who elect to health insurance after they retire, or they can cash out their health insurance benefit and it's paid out over the same duration as they would have been insured. Overall, our health claims have been very good. They've been, we were able to keep the budget essentially flat in terms of our rates for the health plan, so that's good news. Of course, being self-funded, knock on wood, next year's not going to be that bad year, but you have to be able to expect that once in a while. So, but for right now, we were able to keep the budget flat for next year. One other thing that we did this year with the fund is that last year we did have a surplus, and so we returned that surplus to the 2026 budget to help reduce the surcharge part that gets charged back to county departments. So they still get applied the health insurance rates for their employees, but the surcharge, we didn't have to charge them as much for that. Other than that, as you can see through the notes, they're kind of all, these all are kind of separated out, but the 1930 account, that includes all of the active employee claims. Portion of those claims are offset by stop-loss insurance that we purchase. And then we do get reimbursements, as you can see in the next account. So we have to budget for the expense to go over the limit, but then we budget to receive the revenue to offset the claims that go over the limit. Then account 9060, 9999. This is the revenue where we are offsetting what's charged to the other county departments. Is recorded as a revenue here. And then 9089, 8000. This is where the retiree expenses are paid, and then the surcharges back to the county departments. And that is, in a nutshell, the health plan budget. I help in the development of the budget and the rates, and work with our consultant. And the HR department, they are the administrators of the health plan, so they handle all the day-to-day stuff.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Now what? Hey, Deb, thanks for coming early. You can go home a half hour early tonight.
I know what it is. You guys get to lunch sooner. It happens every year. I love it.
All right, human resources.
Okay, HR.
Please introduce yourself, Deb.
Oh, sorry. Debbie Mikowski, Director of Human Resources. So you will see for total headcount, we do show the one full reduction of FTEs. This is due to combining the titles of HR Director and Compliance Officer. We had no other changes to headcount. So for I don't know what you call this.
Just
The-
human,
Just the
the summary
total?
sheet, yep, the
Okay.
local share summary.
I think I'm going right in
Yep, you are.
order. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so for the summary sheet, you'll see the -8% decrease as a direct result of reducing or combining the two titles and reducing the headcount. Okay.
And then she gets to the main department, one of the nice pieces is revenue's actually up. So that is one of the initial projections in revenue for next year. This actually relates to some changes on how they're getting payments online, but it has been an increase. We've already exceeded the budget for this year, and we're increasing for next year. So that's a nice step with the revenue in this department, which you wouldn't expect to actually see revenue generation in. So it's a nice area. And then really their reductions kind of relate to personal service reduction and the vacancy savings also being included in this year's budget also. So that kind of is the reduction you're seeing driving down the 8%.
The 24 to 25 jump was a reorganization of some kind? 647 up to 787? I'm looking
Well,
at-
that's actuals to budgeted, so I'm assuming, I believe the compliance officer position would have been vacant that year, so there would have been savings in the actual numbers for a full-time FTE that would not been, so that's the actual number to the, I'm sure the 24 adopted budget was higher than the actual number, just based on that vacancy.
So, Sam, or Debbie, the HR fees revenue is increasing by 67%.
Correct.
How come? Why?
So we are at 11,600 as of June.
No, it's
of-
actually, I think we're higher.
We're higher now, yes.
Yeah, it's based on online credit card fees. Basically, the new online portal is actually allowing them to increase revenue and also making ease of applications. I believe that she's kind of discussed with me, so more people can apply more often because your application's saved in that portal.
And it's easier. So once someone applies through the system, they've gone through the process of going online, creating their account. When they log back in to apply for the next title, it can be as simple as clicking a button. And if there's an application processing fee that is associated with that application or the exam, we're seeing that increase. So just for comparison, so all of 2024, we had 2,150 exam or applications received. For 2025, through this past Friday, we have a total of 3,953.
So for some of our legislators, they should be pleased that you're demonstrating improved efficiency and increased revenue by use of technology.
Correct.
I didn't even get a smile out of him.
How many $1,000 we talking about?
It all counts.
Small steps, small steps.
Right direction, right direction.
Okay, and then I noticed that publicity and promotion expenses are going down by $10,000.
Correct.
Why?
I have a lot of notes on this one.
Yep, and part of that reduction was the request for all departments to reduce their local share year to year. This was where that reduction kind of happened for HR through the executive review. It was part of our reduction as all departments were asked to reduce at that point in time.
So I think we originally, I don't know if this was 23 or 24, this line item was increased maybe $46,000. The plan at that point was to get us into a situation where we were subscribing through Indeed, where we could then be a sponsored employer through that system. That system would then drive interested applicants directly to our website. I believe in 2024, we decreased it. We decreased it again in 2025. We have decreased it again by 10,000 for 2026. I'd be leery of going any lower and decreasing it any further, just because of what we have seen with a dedicated recruiter. And the dedicated recruiter has only been with us on a full-time basis since April or May. In that time, you're seeing the increase in applications and exams as a direct result of her efforts. Just so far this year, since April or May, since she joined us full-time, she's attended 25 job fairs. So she is out in the community, going all the way up to Buffalo Library with the New York State Department of Labor, attending these job fairs. She's handing out her contact information. On the backside of her business card has a QR code that links to our applicant system. So this is all full circle. We're throwing everything we can at recruitment.
So it really is two components. One component is that we had anticipated more use of Indeed, which hasn't materialized. And second of all, our recruiter now that we've utilizing has been much more effective than the hopes for Indeed.
Right. Now, and in addition, with her working so closely with Indeed, it was in August, I believe, so 2-3 months after she was full-time in the recruiting role, Indeed tagged Chautauqua County as an employer that usually responds within 1 day. That's not seen too often. And they have also upgraded our account to where now if someone is searching for, hey, I'm looking for an accounting position in Mayville, you can search by zip code. Our jobs will remain at the top, and when they click on our jobs, it will no longer say apply through Indeed. It will say apply directly on company website, which then drives us to our applicant tracking system, so they can apply directly with us.
All good news. Thank you.
What else? I was trying to see if there was anything else that jumped out at me. Yeah, so then to the employee benefit side, we do show a 25% increase in base pay. This is, I would say, an unintended consequence of combining the HR director and compliance officer title. because the HR director title was always split 75% HR, 25% benefits. It's just how we account for that title, and now that they're combined, it's hitting this benefits side, employee benefits side of the HR department a little more significantly than what it was. It also has contractual increases, and I should point out that I am proactively budgeting for a planned promotion on the insurance and benefits side. This would equate to, if approved, of course, I would still need to go through legislative approval for this, but basically that would come down to about $1.50 an hour increase for one individual on the insurance and benefits side. I did want to touch on the 80% decrease in postage. This is directly related to the ACA required notices. So these are the health insurance annual election end of the year summary that you get from any employer, 1094, 1095s. In the past, we were mailing all of those. I don't think we were coding that postage correctly in years past, but we were mailing all of those, and then as of 2024, our system, we put everything through the system where we're able to send electronically versus mailing and having the postage costs. Anything else jump out at you that questions, concerns?
Any more questions, comments, concerns?
Background. HR, to what extent do you participate in collective bargaining stuff, or is that department by department?
Nope, I am the lead spokesperson at the table for all 5 contracts.
Okay.
She's the one you've been after all morning.
Well,
Do we need to talk later?
so I do collective bargaining, well, wages is analogous to a purchasing function. And when one's cost of services one buys rises faster than the price one charges for one's services, you get in a jam. And so I look then at you as the purchasing department for that cost driver. And if we're running over inflation steadily or historically or whatever, that becomes a fundamental problem. So that's, coming from the private sector, that's, what I just said is the tautology. Public sector, maybe not so much, but it's still important.
All right, if that's all we got.
Thanks, sir.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Deb. And that concludes our morning session here. We'll break for lunch.
Mr. Chairman, since
Maybe
we are
we're not
ending-
breaking for lunch.
Since we're ending earlier than we planned, would you like to reconvene earlier than scheduled, and would you like us to try and have departments here earlier?
I don't have anywhere to be. Let them take their time. Let them do their job.
Yeah, we've always just sort of, if we get done early, we Yeah,
Okay.
so, no.
There have been times when people have been asked to come in a little bit earlier because we're
No.
out of schedule, so I just wanted to check and.
Thank you, but no, let's not jerk them around for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think we'll just,
Okay.
a good idea.
Well, it's not 10 minutes, it's 40.
That's okay, we have to eat lunch, we have to order.
Still,
Are
I
we
mean-
meeting at 1:30 still, what you're saying?
Huh?
On, our schedule isn't breaking at noon, our schedule is breaking at 12:30 for lunch.
Are we breaking now for lunch?
Yes, I think we think there's a 10-minute issue, a 40-minute issue.
Right.
The other consideration, though, is,
There's what they expect.
yes,
Yeah, I get that.
and it's always been in the past,
Yeah.
I'm normally at work till 5 o'clock, so I have till 5 o'clock to sit
No,
here
I
today.
thought we were getting 40 minutes more for lunch. Are we?
yes.
Okay, I'm excited about that. All Travis, what?
I can go home.
Oh,
Yeah.
You go home?
Right, I can't go home.
I have, yeah, no.
I'm not going to ruin the guys that work
Well,
here.
if we order pizza.
But there's that, she's not planning on coming to 1:30, and you can't, or he can't.
Everybody's, yeah.
I get that.
James already has him scheduled to come in here at 2:30, so we're going to plan for that.
Oh, do we got officially break? Yes.
Yes, we are on break.